Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And today I have one of those amazing people coming to me from Berlin. I'm looking forward to this conversation. He is the CEO of Dora. He goes by the name of Bunny. Bunny, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Great to be here.
Happy to have you. Happy to have you join me. I'm looking forward to it. So let's kick things off. And ask you, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
I'd say there's clearly some signs that I was eventually going to get into a little bit of a non the traditional path, but yeah. Um, so a bit about myself. My name is Mauricio, also known as Bunny. I in university, a lot of my focus, a lot of my career actually started more so in social experimental psychology. I switched around careers a lot in university. I went to UBC. During in the meantime, at the guidance of one of my professors, I started focusing more into looking into different data sets. I started specializing more on the statistical portion of things, which eventually on wanting to just look a little bit more at markets, maybe start helping my parents to pay for university and whatnot. I started looking at markets, other open, decentralized, I guess, constantly generating data sets. One of them was the stock market, so came up with a few models for starting trading on my own. Chatted with some markets, read up a little bit more about quantitative finance, chatted with a few other asset managers, and eventually went through the process of actually raising for a fund based out of Latin America. Did that for a number of years, and then in parallel, I got to also meet a lot of other researchers, both in traditional finance as well as crypto. A lot of our funds structure was primarily focused on market structure. Sorry, a lot of our fund strategy was primarily based on market structure, which eventually led me down the rabbit hole of, how does finance work in a decentralized manner? And yeah, I guess a few years afterwards, I got to have the good luck of meeting a few people that worked very early on a lot of roll-up infrastructure technology and gave me visibility that, hey, roll-ups are going to become the default way for people to start interacting with on-chain ecosystems. And in the exact way that we had this golden age of online adoption that came hand in hand with the golden age of search engines, I realized that we need a new search engine, a new discoverability engine that allows people to just forget about what crypto is, how crypto works, and just start engaging with different goods and services that just so happen to be offered on chain. Fast forward 2.5 years, we have Dora.
Very cool. So Dora, it's known as the infinite discovery engine, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what's that all about, and how do you use and enhance accessibility of blockchain data across various networks?
So Dora, I'd say a lot of block explorers traditionally focus a lot more on just developer use cases. Dora, on the other hand, focuses a lot more on user onboarding into different chains. Every single rollup is now known as their own service provider for different goods and services. You can go to a rollup just to perform financial activities. You can go to another rollup to start minting NFTs. You can go to another rollup to buy music, another rollup to buy movies and whatnot. From this standpoint, we realized that it's really truly cumbersome, even for very experienced crypto users, to switch context, to start learning new tools for a new environment, a new ecosystem. So we tried to unify them all, and we created two main tools, which are Dora ID, which unifies all your different tokens, NFTs, and your transactions back to a single EVM address that is composable across every single chain. And then we created Dora Actions, which enables you to start bridging and swapping and cross-chain swapping directly into any token that you want across every single rollup that we've integrated.
Great. So okay, I'm picturing how this looks like. I'm picturing the vision of this. So you're saying every blockchain would have its own roll up to roll into Dora.
So every single chain, I guess the easiest way to put it is that you can think of every single chain as an application. Every single one application, these applications post information back to Ethereum. That is how they're able to borrow economic security and whatnot. But in the end, you've ended up with this hyper fragmented world that does not really speak to each other very easily. A way of going about unifying or abstracting away a lot of the complexities of blockchain is to start putting all of this information back together on a single interface. That is something that we worked 2.5 years on. It's very hard work, and now we also have, there's like mini subset companies that were built specifically for certain parts of our products. So that is how we're able to, if there's a new, let's say, NFT that is only mintable on a certain chain, you no longer have to grab your tokens, bridge them over, bridge to a new chain, and then you can finally mint. You can just come at Dora, search up the NFT. We tell you, oh, you go right here to mint, and you're able to cross-chain mint this NFT. If there's a token that only exists on chain A and you're on chain C, and you need to go to chain B, and then finally to chain A, you don't have to do that on Dora. You can just go from chain C to chain A. We abstracted a lot of the in-between steps.
Yeah, sounds like it. So when I think of the word infinite, right, or infinite discovery, I think of you're going to be able to bring in all new chains to come on forward, and you're going to last forever. So that's what I think when I hear infinite discovery. But how do you see it?
So I actually do very much like the idea that so blockchains are a step in the right direction towards information living forever, right? Like the smart contracts quintessentially don't need people to maintain them. We call it an infinite discovery engine instead of a search engine like we used to, because people still don't really know what to search on chain. And it's not to anyone's fault. It's not really necessary that someone learns how a smart contract works or the specific wording used to deploy something on chain. That is something useful for developers, yes. Doesn't necessarily, you don't have to know how Amazon works in order to get something from Amazon. That is where a lot of the aspect of this infinite discovery comes from, in which we truly don't know what are the different industries that will start coming into crypto, that are going to start deploying their own chains. We saw most recently Sony deploy their own chain, and that chain is going to be very heavily used for a lot of music and also video. These services, you will be able to access them through Dora. You won't have to go to Sony chain specifically and learn all the Sony tools. You can just learn one single tool, one single engine that you're able to use to access every single one of these services.
So you're going to be like the Amazon of crypto.
That is our ultimate aim, the Amazon of crypto, or more so the Google of crypto, because Google very much, something like Google doesn't exist in crypto just yet, right? But we all know that there's a lot of websites, there's a lot of platforms, there's a lot of chains. The major discovery that Google made, or the major focus, was on being able to rank all these goods and services and let people be able to procure all of these in one single interface. That is exactly where the experience that we're trying to replicate on Dora.
I think it's needed. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's very needed too.
Very cool. So I want to talk about the evolution of multi-chain, right? And multi-VM block explorers to date. Where have we come? Where do you start? Where have we come? And where are we headed?
So a lot of block explorers in the early days, they were developer focused, they were single chain focused, and they primarily provided visibility to transactions. As this community started growing, we realized something that actually were even lessons for ourselves. We started to realize, okay, there's going to be a lot of chains. We need a place to unify them all. That is where we decided to create this unified block explorer, then a multi-chain block explorer. Then we realized, okay, people still care about their identities. So we stopped focusing so much on the aspect of transactions. No one really likes looking at receipts of the transactions. No one goes on Venmo and says, yes, I paid you. You just send them their money, and the person sees on their account change if any balances have changed. So we started focusing on accounts. Then beyond that, now that EVM chains, or chains that borrow the Ethereum virtual machine, have become somewhat standardized, now there's this entire new paradigm of multi-virtual machine environments, in which there you can leverage any single programming language and deploy a chain that just focuses on executing that one language. So now we're starting to create new custom infrastructure for a lot of these chains. We don't know which languages will end up having a lot of adoption. The most recent one that we've seen a lot of spike interest on is Move, which runs this Move-based language that was developed at Facebook a few years back. So that is the new hottest language in town. And we're building a lot of custom infrastructure to unify this entirely different way of producing data to, again, a single interface that just makes every single good and service accessible through one single point.
What's the language that Facebook created, and what is it like? What has it differ from the other languages?
Is Move is a lot more type safe. It has a lot of more type safety and it allows you to have a much higher throughput chain. Bottom line is just a language that allows blockchains to be way faster and way more secure at the moment of deploying a smart contract. If you deploy a smart contract and it has some bugs that then someone could use to hack the smart contract, this language makes it a lot easier to identify these bugs at the moment of deployment, such that then, if you deploy a contract and it says, oh, there's this major bug here, you shouldn't use this application. This isn't currently possible on the EVM. It doesn't necessarily mean that the EVM is worth. It just means that it's a different way of approaching blockchain technology. And there's a lot of Move developers in the world, actually. It's a very growing community. So it also enables us to onboard all of these new developer cohorts into our industry.
Bug fixes. That's a problem still. They don't talk about it much, but the bugs are a problem, and I guess in every coding, right? What are the dangers of not addressing the bug issues, and how do we get it done, and why is it necessary?
It's necessary because in Web 2, if your application has a bug, maybe you weren't able to post an image at the right time, you weren't able to tweet something out, you weren't able to post something on LinkedIn, and you have to retry. When crypto has a bug, it ends up in major hacks, people lose their life savings, people lose a lot of money, people lose access to historical data that is really valuable to them. I personally haven't been in this industry now for a few years, have a lot of very emotionally valuable stuff, I guess, associated to my wallet. Like I have gifts from friends. I've gifted some very pieces of art to friends that I appreciate very deeply. And this doesn't necessarily mean that, oh yeah, whatever, it's just something there. It doesn't matter if you lose it, but it does mean something to people, right? Like we all have all these very interesting interpersonal relations to technology. I think that the matter of fixing bugs in crypto and allowing new languages to create more secure applications in crypto does mean that you can finally allow people to start adopting these technologies, because no one will adopt anything if they don't feel safe while using it. So I think that bringing safety back to our industry and this reassurance around it all, around any good and service, is necessary for us.
I concur. I definitely concur with that. Safety, security, accessibility. How can we I look at different explorers that exist today. Okay, there's a few of them that I can read. Etherscan, I can figure out. There are block explorers, Bitcoin block explorers. There's a bunch of others that I can't understand that save my life, right? How can we better enhance blockchain accessibility as an industry? How can we show it in something that makes sense to normal people? How can we do that?
I think the biggest one is that there's this entire sub niche of the industry that now is focusing on this technology called intents. Intents can get very complicated. They're incredibly complex pieces of technology. However, the one key thing that we can borrow from that sub niche is that people don't really care about how a process is executed. People care that that process is fulfilled, that the intention that you had to procure a good and service was fulfilled, or if it wasn't, why it wasn't. Can I retry to get access to this again, right? So from that standpoint, at Dora, we created a few things like our semantic labeler, which focuses on tagging the intent of a user at the moment of that they interact with an application. If someone interacts with a swapping application, they're most likely looking to buy a token, right? So we call it just swaps. If someone transfers a token or interacts with a contract that eventually transfers a token, we call that whole process a transfer. Something that is very easy for people to be able to understand. If someone interacts with a contract that then does a bunch of things on the back end and then gives you back an NFT, we call that an NFT mint or an NFT buy. That is it. There's no need to get into nuances of how an application was optimized to be able to deliver you a service. We just want to tell people, help people understand exactly what they wanted to do and what they're going to do. In that light, actually, I think that in the end, at Dora, we did such a, I guess, good job at being able to contextualize some of the high level actions that people were focusing on. That now people don't even look at actions. People just look at, oh, was my action successful? That's great. People don't often tend to check or if their action on an application, Web2 application was successful. They just see that it was executed and they move on. They see the change of this action on their balances, right? So that is more so where we started focusing on. We were like, okay, people are going to look at their accounts to verify if actually something occurred. That is where we are putting a lot of our focus now.
Got it. So isn't that difficult to make sure that you assure people that their intent is fulfilled? What are some of the risks involved with that? Like I only heard of intents like last month, or 2 months ago, for the first time. So, what are some of the risks involved in that? And especially like if you're a platform like yours, where the user doesn't achieve the intent they were looking to do, how do you mitigate that, or how do you help them?
I think so this is where it actually becomes a much more collaborative problem. Right now at Dora, we focus on contextualizing on-chain data and then creating a very accessible user profile for people to see that every single action that they engage on was fulfilled. And so then from that standpoint, that is one subset of the problem. The other subset of the problem is how can other, we call them interoperability providers, right? People that are able to enable one chain to speak to another chain. These providers are the ones that focus a lot on how to provide good interfaces of, oh, this is the action that you want to engage on. This is the little label that we give you to say that it was fulfilled, right? So the way that we collaborate with them is that whenever we integrate a new chain and we want to let people not only look at this chain's data, but also start accessing these chains, goods, and services, we tell them, hey, can you help us integrate this chain? They integrate it from their end, and that's about it. The major risks, I'd say, from our side is that the more complex the action gets, the more hard it is to figure out what was supposed to happen. So you lose a little bit of visibility on the transaction if you want to dissect the transactions. However, a very easy way to know, okay, what was supposed to happen is to actually see the balance change on your account, right? If you want to buy a bottle of water, and then this purchase gets routed through 5 different sub providers that all gave a confirmation and all executed different transactions so that you were able to such that a vendor was able to give you back that bottle. That gets immensely complicated. We focus on at least having really good reassurance that, hey, now you have a bottle of water on your account, right? Like that is the easiest way to confirm what actually happened.
Got it. I want to get into interoperability in a moment. I do.
Yeah, for sure.
I do have a concern, and so like everybody right now is working on the user experience. They want the way to bring the masses back into crypto, retail everybody, is where you said earlier they don't have to know Solidity, right? They don't have to know coding at all. Okay, say they don't, and you guys achieve what your mission is, and that's good. There are the blockchains that come out with increasing complexity, right? So if you're a user and you don't understand what's going on, and there's increasing complexity, you know, what's the risk there of people not understanding but putting their money up and then not like with the intents or whatever, you know, not having their money in their hands anymore and losing it all because of the growing complexities in the back end.
So I was actually having this discussion with a few people earlier today. I think that there's a really good compromise in which blockchain more deep infrastructure focused blockchain developers can ensure that there's safety around every single one of these chains that gets deployed. How safety is also a spectrum, of course, and the easiest way to assure safety is that you're able to guarantee to a user that even if a new chain pops up and you put money in, your money won't go away. That we have a proof that you had money on that chain and we're able to somehow recover the funds even if the chain dies, right? So being able to work on these security assurances, provide greater increase of speed of being able to go between different chains and also do it in a manner that feels intuitive for the user. I think that is where a lot of our industry is also focusing on, right? We all are all trying to improve the user experience to very little security detriment of them all.
Interesting. As I want to onboard the next billion people, right? So one of the ways to do that is through blockchain interoperability. So what's the future of interoperability, and then what are the roles of zero knowledge and DPIN in accomplishing this interoperability?
So I think the interoperability when it comes to zero knowledge specifically, it can get very interesting because you're able to, let's say, right now we have companies that are starting to launch their own chains. You can envision a world in which, let's say, Sony is not only a music or movie producing company, right? They are effectively a conglomerate. You can imagine a world in which Sony doesn't put all of their conglomerate to one single chain, but it creates a chain for every single one of their goods and services. You're able to create some interoperability solutions in which you can leverage, let's say, CK to reduce cost or to allow for cross-chain communication. And you can have these, I guess, base chains that then are able to compress information and also provide information back to every single chains for these chains to be able to communicate a little bit more, right? You can have, let's say, base Sony chain, and then within it, you have a subset of music focused chains, regional focused chains, or movie focused chains, right? So you have all these themes, all these region localization and whatnot. I think CK can enable us to reduce the cost of being able to launch every single chain and then post back a proof that every single transaction in a very economically efficient manner. In regards to DeepIn, I think that there is a world in which decentralized physical infrastructure is able to provide greater guarantees of, hey, your data is retrievable, doesn't only live in an AWS service, but also lives across distributed servers worldwide, such that then people are able to ensure that no matter what happens, no matter what company fails, what company goes down, a proof of your data is stored somewhere, and you're able to ensure that your assets are always going to be safe, right? As long as you have this proof, we're able to then guarantee that, okay, you can access your assets back, at least on this base chain. That can be a base chain such as Ethereum.
I like your concept of Sony. It's a good one. I'm trying to think of different organizations and different major corporations around the world, like who have like an arm, like who have are like Sony with different divisions, right? Using blockchains, right? This world in that where all these companies are on the blockchain. How much of it do you think is going to be a public ledger blockchain versus their own private silo? And then if it is their own private silo, how do you break down the silos?
So I think that it is definitely going to be blended. We also, another one of our clients at Dora is this chain that was effectively funded by Warner Brothers, and a lot of this information is you can only interact with this chain in a permissioned manner. It's not permissionless. You need to create an account through their own interfaces and whatnot. And they do this to protect the IP that is created or is lended towards this chain, right? If you want to mint a Major League Baseball NFT trading card, if you want to mint a Netflix shows NFT, you can only do it through this chain called Palm Network. They do this because different corporations want to have different privacy use cases, privacy needs, such as the most simple one. You don't necessarily want to allow that an artist's work ends up anywhere without their own consent, or that someone else steals their IP. And there's this whole discussion around how can we protect IP now? And you can do it by preserving the privacy or the access to some of these chains, right? In the similar manner, if let's say you have a chain that focuses on just supply chain tracking, you don't necessarily want someone to come in and say, "Oh, I created this new thing here. Now you can track it somewhere else." It could be nice, yes, to have a more global distributed supply chain focused ledger, but maybe you don't want something that is illegal to get distributed so easily, right? And to enter the supply chain in an unsupervised manner. So I think that there's definitely a mix of both that we're already starting to see emerge. I'm very curious to see where these things are headed.
I'm intrigued because the other day here in the U.S., the SEC sued OpenSea, saying that all the artwork on their securities, well, if all the artwork on their securities isn't everything provided by Amazon, Google, and anybody else, Disney, what they have on their platform, are they securities too? Where do you draw the line, and how do you bring in the technology to create such, fine lines of distinction?
Yeah, I don't. I like the idea of Etsy being a securities exchange. I think that if you follow this exact same line of reasoning, then you've effectively made it such that every single, even a small local artist just trying to put their work out there on Etsy now is in violations of the, according to the SEC. I think that will get people nationwide riled up very quickly. Same thing with Amazon. Same thing with, I don't know. It's all of Disneyland a securities violation, right? It's all of Disney's World. It's every time you buy a little Mickey Mouse postcard a securities violation? Maybe not. Hopefully not. Hopefully it isn't. But I think that hopefully our regulators are starting to realize that, hey, this technology isn't that bad. It's actually pretty good. We can actually optimize a lot of our needed real life infrastructure just by leveraging it in a privacy preserving manner as well. I think hopefully things will start headed on the right direction soon.
I certainly hope so. Some things are nonsensical. So, I want to, yeah, awesome. So I really enjoyed speaking with you today. I enjoyed this conversation. I think what you're doing is needed, and I'm glad to see you getting success and traction on it. So it's great. I have one last question. And so how can people find out more information about you, about Dora? How can they become users, clients? How can they, do any of that?
Sure. So you can find us on Twitter if you search on Dora. You can find me on Twitter as well. I'm mostly active there. If you search Conejo Capital, that's Conejo Capital. And then on LinkedIn as well, I'm Mauricio Trujillo. And yeah, I think you can find us there. All the links to Dora are also on our website. You can go on Google search on Dora. They're also on Twitter. They're on LinkedIn. We are very easy to find. I'm actually very happy to say that we're the top Google search whenever you search on Dora. And yeah, and how you can become users. Dora is actually a little bit interesting. There's a few search engines that crypto search engines that you have to pay for. We're completely free. We don't believe anyone would use Google if you had to pay every time you search. That would be insane. And yeah, as soon as you enter Dora, you don't have to create a wallet. You don't have to do anything. You can just start searching for goods and services and procure them as soon as you want them.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks to you. Greatly appreciate coming here, Jamil.